with the recent round of layoffs or something like that. So always let us know. Yeah. Are there any other questions or anything before we get started?
Yeah, what about Slack? Initially I found a channel called Austin, Texas, and then after I found ATX.
Yeah.
Is it like a different one or?
Oh, yeah, I said, hold on. I need to message the right person. I grabbed the first E name that I saw in the wrong channel. All right, hold on. All right. Sorry, 1 second. I thought I told the right person to start the stream, and I did not. I just like open up Slack. Person with E, go. Oh no, wrong person. So your question again was
Two channels. Initially I found.
Yeah, so there's the Austin, Texas one and the ATX one. So generally speaking, we've always used the ATX. Both internally and whenever we're talking about the group on Meetup.com and other things like that. And so I think at one point there was an effort for someone who did not know about the existing groups that were already popular, that already had a lot of conversations going, where someone just went and like created a whole bunch of channels for big cities that they were aware of, just in case people who are on the fence about jumping in there and making the channel. And so that was the situation, I think, with the Austin one, was someone who was not aware that the Pound ATX already existed, went and created the Austin, Texas one. So inside of the Austin channel now, we have posted on the top of it and everything, like, hey, we always talk in the ATX one. And so, yeah, Pound ATX is the one that we have conversations in and we discuss and everything. And Pound Austin or Austin, Texas, I don't remember what we called it, but that one just has, hey, go to the other one. So, yeah. Okay, cool. All right. Let me double check to see if the YouTube one is working now.
Should turn green.
Should, but it's going. All right. Well, up first we got Eugene.
Yep.
Giving a talk on Basil, and so this is going to be pretty interesting. Thanks for coming up.
Thank you. Okay. Hello everyone, I'm Eugene, and today I'll be talking about Basil, which is build tool, and I will be using Go as an example of what I'm going to build, and with some dependencies and stuff. But this talk is not about Go only, but also about other languages. What am I? Initially, I was database developer, worked with Microsoft SQL Server for 10 years, and then I decided well, I want to work on open source, and due to I have experience with Delphi, Java, and so on, type languages. Go for me was well, open source, street type, compilable, great, go with it. And since 2016, I started using Go. But somewhere from 2020, I was introduced to Basil, and started more involved into DevOps, build engineering stuff. And for the last 3 years, I worked as mostly Basil dev, and I use Go time to time for mostly minimal stuff. And also the same, I'm not Google fan, but this happens. I work with mostly Google products, Go, Basil, gRPC, Brazos, and so on. And 2 weeks ago, I just moved here to Austin from Ottawa for work. And this is Gopher from Toronto, go on from 2019, and yeah, here we go. So, it works. Today we'll be talking about three things: how we build software, what dependencies are, or what we will be doing with those dependencies, and I'll try to explain how to build a magic button or magic event with Brazos to handle everything. So, build and dependencies. And this of course when Go build is enough, right? So Go build is a simple command which compiles binaries, and it takes a bunch of Go files and produces binaries. It's simple. It does like some other stuff, but for the purpose of this presentation, I think that's like this definition will be enough. And so okay, we have Go files, we have Go build, and we produce is beautiful. But Go known for its like generate everything approach. Like we have Go generate, which can point to anything like binaries installed on the system, shell scripts, or Python scripts, whatever. Usually, in my experience, I work with some operation done with make, like make something like several times, and here we go. Magic happened, and we have binaries and so on. It could be shell scripts, it could be anything. But the point here is, before we run Go build, quite often we don't have all the Go files in place. So even if we run Go build, it fails. We'll complain like, hey, I don't have enough files. Or namely, it will say like something about. So our dependencies, like a first part of our dependencies, will be Go packages, which we are going to bring like third-party packages or packages that we are going to build. Then Go compiler will be a dependency itself, because different versions of Go can produce slightly different output. And generators, whatever we use, I usually use like a gRPC program compiler plus number of plugins, and it's also different binaries, and those are also events because different versions of those compilers and plugins will produce different output. So next, we can run our build on different platforms, and we can also target different platforms. Like we can build something on Mac, for Linux, whatever. Also, we can run this build locally or in servers or whatever else, in Docker environments for reproducibility and so on. So these three things also will be our dependencies. Host machine, where we run our build target machine, the machine we are building for, and also some variables which can affect our build. Okay, so we have binaries. Bunch of them, well, sometimes just one, sometimes of like dozens of them. But those binaries, in most cases, what at least in my experience, doesn't like go along. They should be deployed somewhere, and to deploy it, in most cases, I use Docker or OCI images, and or like archives to publish as a lambdas. And for this one, I need also like a Kubernetes manifest or some YAML files, Helm charts, and so on. So, third set of dependencies will be our Docker, some tools like SMIs, YDT, some any other YAML templates. AWS CLI, for example, we use automation stuff, also can be involved. Make, which covers everything and does another magic with all the tools. And something else, depends on the environment. Okay, so what is a dependency? Technically, it's like everything involved in your build process and which can affect your output. And think about it like a set of moving parts, and each move can affect whatever you do. Sometimes some companies has requirements for compliance, like the build should be reproducible, the build should be verifiable, and so on. And the question is how to control our dependencies. Although we just listen. And here we have like Go packages. We have Go some file, but Go some file no, it's not a block file technically. There is okay. Go compiler. In most cases, like if it's not the major update, I used just whatever I had in the system, like some version, and my colleagues had another version, which is fine, works, and but sometimes even difference between the version could be well critical. Generators, as I said, like whatever it is, whether there is anything involved into the build should be controllable somehow. But sometimes, like I've seen, again, install generators to your system with make install, and whatever it brings, like okay. And unfortunately, especially for generators, there is some of the binaries, some of the shell scripts don't have a version at all. So technically, we say go install something, or maybe download something, and this said something has no version. We can control it by checksum or somewhere else, but usually we don't. Platforms, build flags, and build for specific flavors also not controllable. Environment variables. I've seen many times like we had .ini file which was like executed by like a dir command or anything else. So some make file which just sources these environment variables before the build and run the build. Also like not super controllable, and other tools like Reds, YAML templators and stuff. I don't care about them at all. Like whatever we have, like okay, let's try it, and okay, here we go. So technically, here we have different parts of those dependencies without control. So as a result, we have hardly reproducible build, even in this case. So what we should consider? Well, not all the time, but sometimes, and sometimes it's nice to have. Sometimes it's like it's mandatory. Should think about it. It's reproducible. If we run the build on different systems, what will happen? If we run build many times on the same system, will it be reproducible? And when it fails, what will happen? Should we start with from the beginning, or should we continue from the development? Is it hermetic? Like we can use Docker technically for hermeticity. I've seen it many times, but it's also possible. It has control over the environment, but again, those generators we don't they don't have versions, and they usually just run up install. Here we go. Something installed, and we don't know what. Okay, so the result or the output for the build should be like a set of artifacts. Those could be like Docker images, star archives with binaries, and maybe a bunch of yellow methods which we are going to deploy to our platform. And so we run go build, pack executables predicted by go build into Docker image, push image to the some registry. Or we can take the binary, pack it into star archive, put it in registry, and the same we can do with yellow files. And the border here for like build tools is to produce artifacts, not to deploy them. So technically, the output for build process will be artifacts set in appropriate places where deploy tool can find them. So why go build is not done? Go build just like a part of this process. While we need like a build orchestration, and that's what we're going to talk about. I don't know. Refine problem. What we're trying to solve. So, with this build process, we'll try to first of all bring all the dependencies, including generators, third-party packages, compilers, tools, whatever involved in the build. then we are going to build artifacts and then publish them. And as for requirements, we'll have, we need to build this, make this as isolated as possible, and as reproducible as possible. And we are going to pin variables for all the dependencies involved into the build, which includes all the listed above. Bazel and all that. So Bazel is a build tool created at Google and published it in 2015, I believe. So Bazel aimed to build huge variables, huge in terms of cool size. I stumbled upon one article, and it was stated that Google Monaco had like 86 terabytes of size, which is like a huge variables, right? So Bazel was a solution for building this, for building this Monaco. It aimed to build a large complexity. It supports multiple languages. We can build Go, Java, Python, JavaScript, Kotlin, whatever. And it can run, build on different platforms, locally, remotely, which will help us in this build speed. And also it unifies build approaches across products. So like we run Bazel command, we can build different languages the same way among them. By default, Bazel tries to build everything in parallel. This one you can see, usually when I run Bazel build without any limitations, it beats all the cores, and that's why I don't like demoing like a build stuff during Zoom, because my Zoom just got pretty. Or just I need to limit it and say, hey Bazel, don't keep all the cores, give me just one, at least. As I mentioned before, we can run it locally, or we can run it somewhere in build, run remotely. We can build everything from sources, or we can bring some tools as binaries, which can speed up the process. And also the binaries will be defined. But it caches all the downloads and all the intermediate build steps. That means whenever it fails, we will start the build from the same place, all over the same place where we started, where we failed. And it tracks sources, so a subsequent build will be much faster. So when we build for the first time, it takes time, then subsequent build will verify the hashes of the build, and if nothing changes, it happens within a second. Bazel slogan is fast and correct, choose two. It uses hermeticity, and the hermeticity in this case means for the same source, for the same inputs, and plus same configuration, the output will be the same. And Bazel will verify that. And also, such builds is not sensitive to any changes on the host machine. So if we run build on one machine, or it will be the same as we build as we run this build on the other machine. Source array. All the sources should be pinned by the versions or checksum. And sandbox. For the build with Bazel, all the inputs should be specified explicitly. So if we don't specify something, it will not be included into the build. Any questions to this point? Okay.
Actually, I have one question.
Yeah.
You said it does multi-platform and such. Does it also handle multiple architectures?
Sorry?
Does it also handle multiple architectures?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we can definitely do the same as we do with Go. Just change the variable, change the flag, and build something for the different platform. It depends on some of the rules. I will be talking about them, but yeah, in most cases, it works for different platforms. So let's look through the code. Let's say we have simple hello world generator. Is it visible or can it be visible? Okay. So this file produces another main. This main file produces another main file, and this will be just our fake generator. What are we going to do? We're going to generate. We're going to build the generator first. Then we can run it. We can run it with Go generate command, or we can just run it directly. In this case, we will use Go generate. We run Go generate. Show the file, then run Go build again to build hello world, and we'll run hello world. So if we exclude cat command, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 commands for the generator. And that's how it looks with Bazel. Bazel run and just one label. So what do we see here? Bazel run is a Bazel command. It would be build, it would be run, it would be query, it would be something else. But in our case, we just running something that we just built. /go colon hello world is a label which points to our build up within the our project. Points to the project root and how we define project root to talk about. /go is a package, and colon hello world is a build up within the Go package. So how it will look like visually? With Bazel, we need to create Bazel files. First of them, module.bazel or workspace. Those two files can define project root. Workspace is already deprecated, and starting with version, I believe 7, 6, it's module is used by default, and I will show why in a moment. It defines so module Bazel or workspace file will define those files define project root. And we will have build files in each directory, which can contain 1 or 0 or more build items. So as you can see on these 3 files here, we don't have any Go files in here, but we do have a bunch of build items. So we are going to produce we will create those files. They will not be checked into the report. They will be living inside Bazel cache, and we will be able to run them. Build them and run them. And this link for GitHub blog post and GitHub repo, and this presentation will be available later. Workspace. This one is deprecated, and so here you can see workspace and module file. They have external dependencies. So in this case, we have. So first one is rules.go, which points to the external plugin or rule set. Then we call something from this rules.go. We define the version of Go we're going to use, because Bazel will it can use system installed Go compiler, but it it's not for heuristic. We can define our version, and Bazel will bring us will use its own Go version. Then we define dependency for our generator. It points to the subject repo, and as you can see, for the dependency for the tool, we have some checksums. So that's how Bazel can solve it. And this everything written is in language called Starlog, which is a subset of Python. And Starlog is aimed to like a small subset of Python for configuration and configuration purposes. And that's how module Bazel looks like. It's much smaller. Same here we have dependencies, but with Bazel dependencies can be pulled directly from the external registry. So starting like with Bazel mod or Bazel modules, Bazel community maintains Bazel set registry, which has all the rule sets, and we can find all the rules like in smart space. And still some of the rules is not comparable with the Brazos modes, so it's just technically just a random GitHub repos on GitHub somewhere, and sometimes they're listed in some other file, sorry, some other website. But anyway, right now we have this serverless, which is and same here. We expand so we find a server for Golang for building Go stuff. Gazelle is a utility helper which allows us to build, generate build files. And then we say, hey, okay, let's take all the depths from Golang. And we will use generator from a reference from Golang. Then, and this is build file. So in this build file, and such file for especially for projects, we will have one build file per directory. It might look excessive, but like defines all the targets which are buildable inside the package. So one of the ways to think about it, especially if you have a big project, how you can build your project. You can run go build one time, or you can build like a package by package. And even here, like in this file, we'll have 3 build targets: general, library, and binary. So general, what it does, it takes our dependency and generates hello world, hello.go file with an output from generator. Then we have Go library, and this library takes this file and creates library. Technically, it's an intermediate archive .a file, if I remember, which could be used as to produce a binary. And Go binary relies on library and produces binary itself. The way it works this way, because the reason it works this way, because this intermediate libraries could be linked in different ways, and that's how Brazos handles all the platforms and stuff. Any questions? Yep.
You said that there's a language, a configuration language for this, and it's,
yeah.
Was it Starlock?
Yes, Starlock.
Okay. Is that written in Go?
I don't know, but there is a Starlock Go.
It's a Go version.
Is it Python works?
Yeah.
But
It's a
adapted.
subset of Python.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a protocol Starlock Go, which allows to like actually define write something in Starlock and process it with Go. Okay, so we have a rule, and rule is a function which takes something and produces something. So in this case, general takes it takes a generator around it and produces just one Go file. Go library takes Go file and produces .a file. Go binary takes .a file, produces binary. So this is how this is the rules, and named rule with all the params of target. It's our buildable unit. We can build separately each of them. And next one, what will happen if we run later on our go hello world. So first of all, Brazos will run our generator, then it will build a library, then it will build binary, and then it will run. And the cool thing is we can execute any of the targets. Let's say if we can run something in the middle. Let's say if we have like a big recommend run Brazos with everything, and something fails, we can narrow down the package where it happens and just start working on it and rebuild this package. But if we run when we run, it will execute all the necessary targets into the target we applied. Demo time. So in this demo, we have a couple of services. Service 1 on the top, it has porting service. It's everything deployed into Kubernetes. We have a port, we have a service. It's a direct service, hello world. We just say we have just hello method in there, which returns hello world. Then we have authentication service, which will be using which is using by Envoy, which is system in front of those services, and takes all the HTTP requests, convert them into gRPC, and calls our service one. Before it calls service one, it will check the token with RZ service, authentication service, and if RZ service said okay, request will be redirected to the service one. This will be deployed into my local Kubernetes and Docker, and as you can see here, we will have port 55,000 mapped onto localhost to the server directly, so we can call with gRPC URL. And port 80 will be mapped onto localhost, and this will be HTTP port, and then when we'll redirect all the requests go to this port towards our service. And I'll try to override it right now. That will close. So. Any questions while I'm trying to find my demo? Visible? Okay, so let up. I have this. Here. I will link cache, and so this command will drop the cache. And as I mentioned before, all of the all of the binaries we're going to build will be living inside the Babel cache, so they will not be checked into the heap. And that's one of the reasons why the defined port sometimes is not Go buildable, because again we don't have Go files; they will be in heap. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to build everything first, and DB is the Babel build. So with this command, we'll build followed by $/try_hot, which means like I built everything in this project. And it builds everything. So I didn't. I also can run like a Babel build with some argument which drops all the download packages, but I don't want to do this because I'm not sure how long it will take to boot from the internet. So just let's look at a little bit. Let's read all this. So what's going here? Bazel, as you can see, runs this build in parallel, and every line of this it does something. Right now it builds a bunch of external packages. Gazelle, what it does, it allows us to generate build files. It will target like a Go library, Go binary, and some others. And it also, when it brings dependencies to the project, it generates build files for the dependency. It works in most cases, but sometimes it doesn't. For example, recently I worked with AWS CLI. Nice AWS CLI, AWS SDK Go V2, which is nice Go code. It has like 430 Go code files, which perfectly fine from the build perspective, but it drives crazy Bazel, sorry, maybe Gazelle, because it tries to determine the product and like build all the build files with appropriate dependencies, but due to like SDK has like several internal packages include one into another, it fails. Sometimes happens. So I just built it. If I run it again, as you can see, just set. It's subsequent build. If nothing changed, it happens. Now, what I'm going to do? I'm going to run Tilt. Tilt is the tool which helps to work with Kubernetes and handles all the deploys and it can deploy anything and delete it. So wait for to build. BR is for Bazel run alias. And run it. It does something. It creates all the. So what happened? What happened under the when I run Bazel run tilt up? It takes a tilt, runs it, and the tilt also has configuration written inside. It takes under the hood tilt called Bazel and runs sub-targets. Some of the Bazel targets, like dedicated targets for building images, is runnable. And when we run those targets, they Bazel will publish images into the local Docker registry. That's what it relies on. And then it just pulls those images from the registry and deploys into local cluster. So as you can see here, we have service one, OZ and envoy. So I can it's already here, but I can call with 0 and here we go, it works. The same I can do with grep 0. So in this case I will be calling port 55,000, which points to the grep server directly, and technically bypasses envoy and call it server directly. If I try to change the token, nothing happens. OZ says okay, authorized, and that's it. Any questions? Yeah.
Sure. So that tilt integration, is that something that's actually like some sort of plugin you can get for
No, it's
Brazos,
not.
or something you can build?
No, it's tilt.dev tool. It's not part of Bazel, just as external tool I use for like just deploying services locally, and it has it can use Bazel, but it also can work with the different like platforms, with Kind, with Meetup, with other commercial applications, and yeah, just it helps with the local development for events.
Okay. My question is,
Sure.
is that the custom target that you wrote for Bazel, or is that a plugin for Bazel that you
So I can show this target really quick. Here. So if we look at the target for, you mean target for tilt?
So yeah, when you ran that, it looked like it ran through Bazel.
Yeah,
So is that target something that you built,
Yeah,
or is that
so
like a
it's-
plugin within Bazel? Oh, okay.
So this bunch of tools I would say here. Technically, this wrapper for shell script.
Okay. Okay.
Sometimes we can run something with the Bazel, like just a random binary or a random shell script. Sometimes it's better to define a rule set or like a rules go. For example, rules go has all the rules, all the Docker packages and all the tools involved into the rules, so we can call them from inside the rule. On my work, for example, one of the big tasks is to bring tools that developers use like for the build into the Bazel, into the Bazel build, and for this way I can define my own rules. Right in Starlock, like I wrap it with Starlock code, and that will make it like easily included like with one line in the module file with the Bazel tag.
Can you show your
yeah?
Can you show your tilt file?
Tilt file, yeah. It's all Starlock, and yeah, it calls YAML, it calls Bazel build, and something like there is Bazel.tilt file, which has Bazel run and Bazel build, which that file was taken from tilt community. It technically does, it calls a bunch of Bazel targets and washes them with its own like washes. I can show it. And run something like then filters use Bazel query to extract some of the data from baseline I'll talk about it in a moment. And just widgets labels and
So, sorry, can you, if you run tilt up directly, that will run Bazel build.
yeah.
But you can also, but you're running Bazel run tilt, which runs tilt up, which runs Bazel build.
Yeah, it's like yeah. I run runs Bazel, and it relies on already built stuff. If you remember, I built everything with Bazel, before I run it. I can do
Yep.
it like I can skip this step, and I can rely on like Bazel run, which will invoke tilt, and the tilt will run the necessary parts from Bazel again. But the issue here, and I still didn't resolve it. Some of the defined flags which affect the build, and that leads to the some rebuilds because like something in build changed, and the tilt when I run the tilt, okay, it's a bit different. For this product is not like important. For the bigger one, it's more important. One of the example, till some of the time, ROS program, which uses program compiler, it with the Brazos file. So before run program compiler, you have to like build program compiler itself first, which is C++. And then we can run it to produce like whatever. And this C++ targets will really sensitive to any changes in the environment. And I stumbled at a point where we run regularly, which worked when plugin for VS Code runs Bazel query, changes something. It requires rebuild program compiler, which is like heavy stuff, I would say. And fortunately, with Bazel mode, and use toolchain, which is like we pull the money from the remote source and like we don't need to do it anymore. But yeah, like these changes, and Bazel says explicitly like, hey, something changed. Warning, like I have rebuilt it, and that's how we can find something that might affect our output.
So are you then having tilt look at so if you edit source code, you're having tilt look at detect the changes, and then it reruns Bazel?
So, tilt looks for changes. We can somewhere here look. So tilt will be looking for some changes within some files, so the service will deploy with tilt, and then will invoke necessary Bazel targets. So technically, this file, this header file, what it does, it extracts all of the paths. It have to watch for the changes, because by default it will say if we run tilt without Bazel. Anytime we change the code, it's just a watch. It will build the image, pull it into the registry, and deploy it to the service. With Bazel, we need to extract data from Bazel cache, find those changed files, and watch labels. It's a little bit complicated. I was trying to change this file, and I don't use tilt too much, but yeah, it's a bit complicated. Any other questions? Comments, please?
Are you building tilt from source?
No, I've tried, but I don't know why, but it's it's a web product actually. It has Go backend and a bunch of frontend. I've tried, but it didn't. Again, usually like a lack of motivation, and I didn't want to. I don't use it much of it. Okay, I can pull binary, and technically, if you look at this source has both. Where is it? Yeah, it has a Brazos file and it has module file. And tilt still lives inside Brazos file. How do we convert it into module file? But as you can see here, just version, have a URL where to pull from a bunch of classrooms for all the archives, and HTTP archive target, which defines an external target for Bazel, and we can also build it explicitly with Bazel and verify it the output. So what it does technically, it takes the archive, extract and put the content into the special place where from where we can run it later with this wrapper, and this wrapper referenced by our show library. So this wrapper relies on yeah, I know. I also like
Wait, what?
I have a section where to use Bazel for later.
Sorry?
I don't have a section when to use Bazel, so I explain when to use Bazel and when not to use it. So yeah, so technically this wrapper relies on output, and Bazel returns the path within Bazel cache where we can find this output from this XML devices. Why did it do this way? Let's keep it for the moments later. Yep.
Ignorant user question, but if you have a workspace and Go, does a Brazos default to one of them, or?
Yeah, so depends on the room. Workspace file is what was used initially, and started version I believe 6. Right now it's like new one is 8. Current version is 8. Starting version 6, we can switch from workspace into Bazel mode to module file. Right now, Bazel recognizes both files. We can define like a transitioning from a workspace and document file. You can have they have all the dependencies, external dependencies, including sometimes Go dependencies and so on. For example, with the workspace file, Bazel doesn't use the Go mode directly. So when we run the build, it tries to find dependencies from somewhere else, defined in the workspace. So for this one, with workspace file, we have to first of all generate several dependencies, install in okay. Technically, we need to generate a set of build targets with Gazelle, and Gazelle can parse Golang file and creates this big depth file. With modules, as I mentioned before, we have this nice line, which says, hey, Bazel takes all the dependencies from Golang. We don't need to maintain this Golang file anymore. But yeah, like at this moment, Bazel can recognize both files, Go mode and workspace, and the float variation is really so we can technically let's say here we have how many? Every Bazel dev defines one target. We have 5 here, 2 here, 5 here, and I can within transition I can bring one by one dependencies into Bazel mode and step by step convert approach into new version. And yeah, as I mentioned, also not all the rules or extensions are ready for Bazel. So then the rule authors have to prepare them for using the Bazel mode and publish them to Bazel registry. Any other questions? Okay. So. Next one. Labels. You can build everything. Instead of build, you can run test. Can run something. Obviously, if you target around it, we can build everything. We can build one function. We can build one target. We can build what else? We can solve dependency. We can build some dependency one by one if necessary. Sometimes it is because like it might be generated, it can fail, and we can ask Bazel, hey, what's that? Okay, what we have there? And we can what's that? Should write build files mostly. As I mentioned, Gazelle, it can generate, can parse the Go project and generate a set of Go library, Go binary, Go test targets, and I don't have the method here, but the thing with the build file and why we keep generating those files is to, as I mentioned before, we have to specify files explicitly. So in here we specify just one Go file, and we specify all the dependencies included in this Go file. If I create another Go file in the same directory, and if I don't put it here, we will not see it. That's how it, that's simple. And every target requires explicitly defined. And yeah, Gazelle can generate data with all the dependencies and all the files. Yeah, it also, Gazelle also can keep it up to date, create file or a Gazelle that adds it to the video file. For manual targets, yes, we need to write something manually, like define targets for build images, dot files, option facts, and so on, whatever we want to do during the build. It's manually. Gazelle, as far as I remember, also covers some other languages. It's Python, JavaScript. But like it's partially automated. What else? We can ask Bazel about something like, hey Bazel, I have a bunch. Where it's used? By which other packages it's used? And or like show me dependencies for this build package. Or like I have this file. Like if I delete it, what will happen? Like where it's referenced, and so on. We can find like dependency path between targets, like how they related and where they connect. And this is really helpful when we like do the path, especially for reference. And as for dependency graphs, or something like that, it's good technically all dependencies. It's not important, but for example, we have image target which builds our image, which includes our base image. It's not base. Then it has it references right at the point. Something external. Then it uses upper layer target, which has another external dependency. Then it goes to the application, to Go library, source, main source file. Then it has dependencies to UID, and UID has this number of dependencies. That is Go files which goes into the target. And we can build this image with just two commands. With a query and reference to the file, and then we just we thought we can draw this video. And this graph will be like huge. Extensibility. So as I mentioned, rule sets or rules available for Go, for Python. This is set usually used for Go, rules Go for Gazelle. For editing Go files and build Go binaries. Rules CCI allows to build CCI images. Rules proto for generating gRPC and program stuff. Rules for editing, this is my own distributor for editing tool, which is YAML template, and some others. Bazel build is the main Bazel website. BCR Bazel build is a public Bazel Center registry, and also Bazel is community maintained list of rules which like is suitable for workspaces and just spread out across GitHub, and some with references to some videos, like blog posts and so on. As usual as in any other awesome X files. And when we use Bazel, number of things, it could be used anywhere. The question is how much value it will bring and how much issues it will bring. As you see, like it's like sometimes it's a bit overcomplicated, but Bazel brings something and solves something. It was created for solving something. And initially when I was using the Bazel, I just had like a nice molecule with a bunch of.
Do you love it now?
Yeah, I love it. Okay. And I try to use it like all the time. I didn't like it because I was working within Molecule, and we had like those microservices living inside Molecule. Everything was perfectly operated against make, build, build. And then one guy says, okay, hey, let's modify it. Okay, let's modify it. And then I have something called like a build file, build file, build file, build file. What the hell? And like, I don't understand how it works. And it's the one downside of Bazel is like it has a really steep learning curve. It takes time to learn it, and it has its own system and so on. But it's awesome. And yes, I love it right now. And the reason why, because it's like a magic button. I can build everything within just one command and polish it with another command. I just need commands, and it's really nice for modeling. Like and even I don't need to install anything else except iBazel, sorry, not iBazel, Bazel, which is Bazel launcher, which you can specify like a version of Bazel I'd like to run, and type Bazel run and Bazel launcher. And Bazel launcher will pull Bazel and run Bazel. Anyway, it can like simplify builds, but if you'd like to use it, have at least one person who knows how Bazel works, because sometimes I can modify something and then stuck within just one thing which will not allow you to do something, and this might be really time consuming. If you have huge variables, so relatively big variables with multiple builds and many languages inside, Bazel really shines here because we can define like again Bazel targets, define all the build steps with work, which again takes time, and yeah, automated this way. If you build takes time, Bazel can really decreases the time by like utilizing a remote cache or remote execution. So definitely you can create a build file somewhere in some cloud provider and run Bazel there. I work with projects where I was not able to run build locally. The only thing I can do, I can do that like just write tests and run this for my API. But with Bazel I can build everything remote. When hermeticity or reproducibility a manager. So Bazel cares about it, but it's not hermetic and reproducible by default. It's like it says like fast and correct. It is. With a little bit star, depends on how rules are written. Let's say within a rule we can call something like a format system. If it's something like should be pre-installed, okay. For example, I've seen rules which utilize like a pre-installed AWS CLI from function. It works unless we don't have AWS CLI pre-installed function. So then within this case, if we move the build, move product to the other machine without AWS CLI, build will fail. But we can write a rules away where we build this CLI, read it from somewhere, install it, and run it to Bazel. And yeah, it will be living inside the location and will not be affected by external by the systems that change from the system. Anyway, so when not to when not to use build Bazel, as I mentioned, like when it's doesn't bring value. If you have small or one language, it will work, but how much value will it bring? Probably not. Due to steep learning curve, sometimes to run it and send it and work with it, and yeah, like it's that one thing is like it's not silver bullet. Bazel solves a lot of issues, but it brings some others. So it's like everything software engineering. It's a balance between like what I like to solve and what I like to solve. So
work okay with Node?
With what?
With Node, like Node type of projects?
Node.js?
Yes.
I haven't worked with JavaScript. I mostly work with Golang and Python. But there are a bunch of processes for Node, for JavaScript, for other protocols. If we look at
Oh, that's okay.
yeah, look at there are a number of groups. Anyway, it's gone.
Okay.
Yeah, so there are a number of support for different languages in different set of usability, I would say, because most of the rule sets are community driven, and for Go it's like it's almost perfect. For Python, there are at least two different Python rules. One community driven, another one by couple companies, and yeah, and some. When I worked with previous company, we written like some parameters over those rules that aims our goals. So and yeah, it's possible to also like technically write some rules at least in a year. But yeah, like, we can write the rule and they just a good button.
And my second question is, can you use Bazel to search for Bazel extensions?
No. You mean like something from the no, well, it's all extensions right now. I think any external extensions we can utilize in the build. Oh, we can find them in the registry these days. I don't know how many of them. Well, it was 900 of them. Anyway, some of them are there. Some of them like could be found somewhere else, but like yeah, like usually. Name convention is like a rules something, and that's something like either language or tool or something else. But we can search across product, like across file dependencies with and technically there I've shown like basically there is also Bazel maintains building a graph inside, and we can query this graph, and what it does with each node and so on. It's also possible, but no, it's there is no such features like search. For example, with Bazel.
Surely you could write a Bazel rule that would download the index and then grep through it.
Sure, can write a bash script for that.
Have you compared this to things like Nix or Maison or Ninja?
Now work with them. No, I didn't. Sometimes we'll compare this with Gradle Maven, but well, I've seen products which work with both Bazel and Nix for some purposes. But no, I personally didn't. There I've seen another version about Nix and how to make them hermetic. But yes, also, as I mentioned, Bazel is hermetic, but not by default. How to make it hermetic, and depends on the role. It could be like a different. Yep.
So I used Bazel a number of years ago, and every time I upgraded it, I broke all of my rules. Is it still that fast to moving a target?
That happens. It depends on like every product can put like a different number of dependencies, and it's up to like rule set authors. Also, like we can utilize some of inside the rule. We can utilize some of the Bazel features which are available in specific versions of Bazel. I've seen it sometimes quite early, but yeah, that happens. As for rules, most example I've seen probably for rules for CI, but that was like expanded. Everything when you upgrade from version 1 to version 2, it will be broken, and it slightly requires to like maintain it. Maybe the name targets, rules itself, and so on. But yeah, like it might be usually, the role from here is to go to the release page, and usually role setups they maintain good guidelines about like what's happened there, especially if you update from like several major versions. Well, who knows what will happen there, and even when I work with like internal rules for the company, we had version like 154.47, which like we had several days during the day, and some people like I don't know topics, and when we updated like from 1.0.7 to 154 something like that, oops, everything is broken, and unfortunately this happens, and how can prevent it? Like we've been doing like writing some unit tests, which within the rule also some verify the inputs and outputs, and you can at least from the dev side, from the earlier side, you can verify the works, and yeah, we're trying to find guidelines how to do it, and how to make it work with them. Yep.
What are some interesting use cases you encounter?
With
Other
the-
than simply building and bringing dependencies in?
Interesting. I've seen one with Bazel. Okay, so it was without Bazel, but I tried with Defy. So we had in one project we had one YAML file which defines set of metrics. That file was processed by English deployed in Python, and it produces program file. Then program file was fed into program compiler, produced Go binary and Go files, and then run Go. Go compiler and create Go binary. After I verified before, but other than that, I don't remember.
I can share one. So we have a big mono repo where Brazos is used, and one very interesting use case that I did not contribute to is we have this manifest where you have some data resources, Kafka topics, tables, or whatever, and when users want to onboard a new resource, it gets merged into the mono repo, and a big Brazos job runs where there's a bunch of checks. Then you have some custom OPA rules to generate ACLs. And these ACLs generate Pulumi files that get then provisioned into the infrastructure. So you have all this orchestrated with Bazel. And there are some custom Bazel modules, which is pretty interesting.
In my case, what I usually do with again, Go binaries, building Docker images and generate manifests. Everything like in manifest I've been using Docker digest. So I have to build binary, build the image, take the digest, generate manifest, and put the digest into the manifest. This was done for like be able to update whenever I deploy this manifest to update the image and not run on the text viewer. Nothing like this. Bazel is really nice here because it can make this many build many multi-step builds and do it like again within one command. Yeah.
Can you produce OCI images without using Docker?
Yeah. So definitely also the history. There was actually there is rules Docker, which we deprecated a couple of years ago, and then I think last year it was undeprecated for some reason, and there is a threat and the Bible stuff for this, but it was I was initially used it for like generating images, also available like generating images without Docker, but it was again like in like not like let's say not super maintained globally. Rules is by CI, and rules CI what it does definitely who it uses Crane or some other tools. that result will be just a file with a bunch of manifests and content for the image. So yeah, we can reuse the
It's
images.
just an archive with the manifest,
Yes.
the OCI image.
Sorry?
The OCI image is just a manifest file with some
Yeah, yeah.
directories basically. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what the technical rule said. That's like basically just an archive and
Mhm.
you can do it whatever with this images.
Go ORAS library is really good for that. Go-ORAS or ORA.
To generate OCI
Yeah,
images?
you create arbitrary manifest images. I use it for like rsync between two stuff. I basically make my own manifest and sync them back and forth as a
Oh.
product content sync.
Interesting, okay.
There's also that KO thing, which, yeah, builds a OCI image of your Go binary.
KO?
KO instead of GO.
Okay. This is news to me.
Yes, it's somewhere. I'm not sure if there is a rule which uses scale. But maybe rule scale. Also, there was a bunch of rules like rules skates for generating Kubernetes manifests and deploying them into Kubernetes. And when I work with Bazel is a build tool. It might be used as a deploy tool. We can run it like we can run anything with Bazel, right? So we can write the wrapper, push the script on the runtime, and run deploy, for example. But the thing is, in my experience, I was trying to keep Bazel as a build tool, which produces artifacts and that's it. Don't deploy anything with it, because then we have to like, we have like Terraform files, like let's deploy it. Like wait, we have a state. Well, like, oops, I deleted the cache. What am I saying? To avoid these issues, like Bazel is a build tool, and the borders here like just produce artifacts. That's it. And if you want to deploy it, do something else. And it got it like a build stuff is really great. As to deploy, I'm trying not to deploy, but it's possible. Not large, but possible.
How do you handle versioning across the different packages within the same one?
Okay, so dependencies?
Yeah.
Depends on the language. For Python, we said we're trying to write in our own wrappers for rules Python that handles this stuff. For Go, we decided like, hey, we just have one just Go file and handle all the versions, unless developers explicitly requires specific versions. But in this case, we can define two different bases in Go file, name it differently, and we'll have different taxonomy for Bazel for those versions. It's also possible. It requires some workaround, but it works. But yeah, it's possible. Probably. Yeah, so that's Bazel. Try it.
Thank you.
You also have a short thing to share? I got a couple little things, but.
There's still plenty of pizza back here. There will probably be a couple of cold pizzas people could take home afterwards, but better now than later.
I had a couple like little grab bag things I was working on lately. They're all open source projects, but I thought they'd be kind of fun to share. Lately I've been working with browser automation. So I work on a tool where we have to go grab web screenshots of random endpoints. So we're like starting up Chrome, running it to Target, doing up to yourself, scraping, saving an image, all that fun stuff. The problem is they're all trash and all the browsers are trash. And they're all based on Chrome and they all have different bugs. So I was trying to figure out like how do I actually, on a bare Windows machine, make Edge actually useful for something besides downloading Chrome. And ends up you can actually make it take screenshots, but you have to like fake the app data directory, you have to run as a separate privilege, you have to drop in just like it's all this stupid crap to do.
What's the issue with Chrome? Is Chrome new?
Chromium's fine. If you're running, Edge on Windows, it does not want to take screenshots by default. It's not really designed for it. You have to do all these dumb things for it. Like you have to run it as a separate user account under a restricted token, and then set the SIDs on the temporary directories so they're mapped with the restricted package directories. So there's a bunch of junk. But you have a little package called GoRod support GoRod, and it handles like everything top to bottom for getting a fresh version of Chrome from the internet, installing it wherever you want to, and then doing all the fun stuff. So one of the examples here, there's just going basically it uses whatever Chrome you already have, or you can download one version. In this case, it's grabbing the Chrome already there, and then it immediately goes and pulls the let's see the screenshot here in a second. There you go, go.dev. So one of the cool things with it though is you can actually scrape JavaScript variables out of the page that you load. So if you want to determine like what version of React is on a website, you can actually make Chrome connect to the website and then in JavaScript console scrape out the global variables and dump them out all through Go programmatically, which is kind of fun. So it's just a neat way to kind of turn Go into a really great like browser scripting engine. There's a few different versions of this stuff out there. There's things like Vidium, which is brand new, Chrome DP, Chrome CDP, but my variant of that is on GoRod. It's mostly focused on handling all the weird security boundaries. So if you're running on Windows as a service, as system, for example, it'll drop privileges to be the network service instead, and then handle all the SIDs and other token BS you have to do to make it work correctly. And it works with Edge out of the box. So the cool thing is you can take a Windows machine that no one's ever touched before, run your Go code on it, and be able to take browser screenshots using the built-in Edge, which until this point was incredibly stupid to do because you had to do all these weird permission hacks and stuff like that. That's all part of that GoRod project. That's open source and done. So that is my most proud moment this week was setting up my cross builds for all the architectures. So this is Ubuntu, x64, ARM64, macOS, Intel, macOS, ARM, and then Windows, Intel, Windows, ARM, and they all magically work now from the same code base. So very exciting to actually get all these working out of the box with the GoRod scraper. So you can obviously take any machine and easily get screenshots for it, as well as automatically installing Wiz Chrome dev tools into the right directory if you want to. It does all kinds of dumb tricks, like you have to, if you try to be more secure by dropping privileges on Linux, but it's on a recent version of Linux with user namespace disabled, it'll crash. So there's like 90 things you can do where every time you try to write a Chrome on a Linux machine, it'll actually self-kill itself with a breakpoint trap because the thing's insecure. But only if you try to make it more secure. If you run it as root, it's fine. So it's super obnoxious, but if you want to see all the tiers involved of like making Chrome run in all these crazy environments, all the codes here are part of the launcher code. And there's a screenshot, a little screenshot utility here that goes about the details about sandboxing and user namespaces and all that stuff. So hooray, that's actually done and useful. The other project that's working on is trying to like precisely measure the latency of a connection. There's a neat little stat called the HTTP stat. I don't know if you all played it before. It says like, oh, your TCP connection took 20 milliseconds, then your GET request to the first header was like 15 milliseconds, and your application body was so on. And you get this nice little chart showing like what part of that the connection took too long. What you don't really get out of that by default is you don't really know the real low latency. So you don't know what the milliseconds you're having to guess a little based on soft API calls. You don't actually know what the round trip time, the jitter is, all the kind of like kernel level stats you really want. So what this library does, the Go package called convert or conniver, you mount the existing netcon with it, and it'll automatically grab all those crazy stats from the kernel automatically for you, and then you can dump them back out again. So you can say like, what was the round trip time from my initial stand and act? What was the window size or the congestion windows? How many retries and backups did I do? So if you're making a connection like a third party, and maybe your HTTP your API client starts timing out, and like, okay, their application's being broken. But if you actually look at the TCP stats coming from the kernel, it'll say, no, we're actually doing TCP retries. Like, the proxy's fine, you just can't get to it, you have packet loss. So you're trying to tell the difference between like packet loss on the wire versus a load balancer versus an application behind load balancer. You use this library to like precisely fingerprint all the steps of the connection. And an example of that here is running HTTP stat, a variant of it, against go.dev again. Oh, actually, we're on Wi-Fi, so we actually do connection, that was great. So you make the connection, TLS 1.3, we see it's 47 milliseconds for DNS server, 13 for the TCP connection, 90 for the handshake for TLS, and then pre-transfer, transfer, all that kind of fun stuff, total between 2 and something milliseconds. So normally you look at this like, yeah, whatever, it's fine. But if you pull the convert data out, it's actually saying like, there's actually one TCP retransmit here. We had to retransmit 1400 bytes because the Wi-Fi dropped the frame. So it's like, you get amazing level of detail for any TCP connection for free as a normal user account without having to do VPF and crap. So
How
implementing
are
that.
you able to get this data?
Oh, it's a pain in the ass.
You have to basically create all these like per operating system structs and then call syscall on them all. And so there's all the syscall crowd conjunction and all different fields based on OS. And even more annoying, 32-bit Windows doesn't work the same way as 64-bit Linux. And like, they're super obnoxious. So you can see like all the different build targets here. So TCP info, this is the worst because each time a new kernel comes out, they add another field under the struct. So it has to actually figure out what version of the kernel it's getting it from, and then find out what struct fields are available, and then basically dynamically decode which struct fields are available. So it's a whole like wrapper, unbuffer, packer, validator, all this BS. You get like tons of really cool data. You just have to like unpack it a billion times, and it's super obnoxious to get it out. But it does get you like congestion control, all kinds of really cool stuff, or variable round trip. The mean variability of the round trip time. So you get like really awesome stats out of it. Last TX, last RX, how many SIMs were actually sent. And this library actually works with macOS out of the box, Linux 32-bit and 64-bit, which are different syscall interfaces. And then more interesting, I actually got working with Windows out of the box without privileges. Because there is a SIO TCP info available, there's a get per TCP connection eStats, which is the standard way to do it on Windows, but it only works if you're an admin and if you off your socket into the API before you create the socket, which is stupid. So what this does instead is it uses the TCP info struct instead, and it grips the send window, receive window, reordering, all that fun stuff. So if you're ever debugging a connection, you want a really quick way to say like, is this thing funky? It'll tell you like, this thing is broken in a particular way, and it'll tell you where it's breaking on the wire, which is kind of fun. So that's this runs around Conover. And it's
If I may, you can't access the TCP headers from Go. That's good. That's kernel.
yeah, we get the kernel to give us those headers.
Yeah.
And then we tack them onto the struct and like peel them back out again. So you can do it a couple ways. You can do like a PCAP capture and do it that way. You can use eBPF and do a BPF program to capture it. This uses the TCP info IOCTL instead. So when you first open the connection, you grab the stats for that socket descriptor, and then when it closes the connection, it does it again. Then you have both stats. You can say how long did it take, what are the actions, retransmits, and all that. But if you don't want using the wrapper crop, you can just call the TCP info sub-package directly, and it's super handy for diagnostics. So recommend playing with it if you need to do any kind of weird TCP diagnostics. Last thing I want to show and tell real quick is there's this horrible thing called Mongo database that you may have had to work with before. It is a flaming turd. So December 24th, the Mongo team.
Mongo bleed.
Yeah. Well, everyone talks about, ooh, someone put it in it, dumped an exploit for it. No, the fucking pull request in the patch. Sorry, people on the camera. Had the actual exploit in the pull request and unit test. So December 24th, they committed a patch for this vulnerability and put the exploit into the patch. And so of course people started going wild using that little zero compression block to go dump everyone's credentials around the internet.
Yeah.
So it was like, well, why would you put MongoDB exposed to the internet without a password? That's stupid. Mongo doesn't actually take your password. Like, you can run a whole bunch of commands in Mongo without authenticating at all. You only need a password if you're going to talk to a particular database. There is no such thing as authentication in Mongo. So the Mongo bleed vulnerability was exposed at the zlib compression layer even before you run a command. But even with that command, with proper authentication, it still has a bunch of commands exposed. So they used to have a command exposed called build info, which is great. You see exactly this build of Mongo, and you can tell the customer about it, right? But then they decided to be sneaky and get rid of the build info command because that was a security risk. So, anyways, that got annoying. So starting with version 8.2.1, they got rid of build info. So now we're trying to figure out, like, is this a version of Mongo that's patched or not? How do you tell what version it is? So we did it, like a normal human being. We go and get every Docker container, every build from Mongo, dump the help info for every command across all the repos, all the versions ever, and then just diff the motherfuckers. And so I went through and diff everything of every rev of Mongo ever, and then this repo actually has a GitHub action that pulls in new Docker containers, automatically rips all the command info out, fingerprints them, puts the fingerprints in a big JSON file. It's complete overkill for the stupid thing ended up being. But the neat thing about that is you can say, okay, based on this hash of these different fields in the set parameter output, we know it must be version 8.22 to 8.23. And it automatically comes up with all the little sliding windows and hashes for you from the GitHub action automatically back right now. So a really easy way to do fingerprinting in Mongo using the set parameter help output pre-authentication, which is the most overkill way to do it. The most fucked up thing though is every single minor revision of Mongo adds like 20 or 30 feature flags and then removes them again. So if you've ever seen like feature flag code, right, every third line is a fucking feature, but you have nothing on Mongo. Just in version 8.2.1 to 8.2, they added all these new parameters. And like, you can go look at there's a JSON file here on the repo you can pull up, but it is insane how just ridiculous their diffs are. Like, they'll add like 50, 60 new feature flags for every single small release, and then rip them out again right afterwards. It's like you can see their customer support tracker, and there's constantly shoving support tickets in as like these individual parameters. So look through these parameters here, I mean, they're adding a ton of crap. So add a new parameter called cloud-free monitoring endpoint. Like, why is there a cloud-free monitoring endpoint URL parameter in the Mongo database? Like, their entire product line is basically shoving feature flags into the database at this point. That's hard-coded parameters. Anyways, fuck Micro, but that was it. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Neil, is that everything for today?
Awesome, thanks to both of our speakers this evening. Let's give another round of applause. As another reminder, don't forget, if you parked here, I promise you want one of these. Get it before you leave. And yeah, next month, we've got a couple of potential speakers lined up, but if we've got anybody who's you know, really excited to take a shot at it, let us know. We can definitely always rearrange things. So,
there's something out there that you know more about than anybody else, no matter what. You spend more time on one thing than everybody else, you already know tons of cool stuff that you probably can share. So never feel like you've got nothing to share. Everyone's got something they can share for sure.
yeah. Once again, we're not going to be meeting in March. We will be meeting in February. We will not be meeting in March because we're not going to be in downtown Austin in March. You do not want to be in downtown Austin in March.
We just moved to
South by Southwest happens in downtown Austin in March. And it is not as crazy as it used to be. It used to be you didn't want to be anywhere like in the central part of Austin at all. Like driving is just impossible. I don't think it's going to be that bad this year, especially since the convention center is out. I think South by Southwest is probably going to be a lot smaller than normal this year, but it is still madness. Now, Austin City Limits is also kind of madness, and so is Circuit of the Americas, the F1 stuff. But both of those are kind of isolated to one part of town that's really well set up for dealing with that. South by Southwest, even though there are probably fewer people that come to that at this point than ACL, if you combine the two weekends, it covers all of downtown, and so it's just generally speaking, it doesn't make a lot of sense to even bother trying to come to downtown during that week.
But unless you want free food and free stuff.
Yeah, well, if you're coming down here, you're gonna pay a lot for parking, and then you're gonna see all kinds of interesting things. Like, don't get me wrong, there's interesting stuff going on around here during South by Southwest. Here at Capital Factory or I assume that was the factory, or maybe East Station Austin. Whatever's happening here is one of the places that has a lot of the interesting stuff going on. And that's part of the reason why pretty much no user groups are meeting in the middle several weeks of March. Actually, not at the beginning of March either. I've got another user group that meets at the last Wednesday of March, and so we'll probably be okay. But almost no other groups, like first, second, and third Wednesday are pretty much, first, second, and third of anything that month is usually going to be
Hotels sell out for like 90 miles around Austin. You can't get a hotel anywhere near the city. A lot of my neighbors just move out for the week and rent their house out in short-term rentals and make like an entire 2 or 3 months of mortgage.
Yeah. I live in an apartment just south of the river, and the apartment complex was fighting the Airbnb stuff for a while, and they gave up and decided that, okay, well, there's just going to be an official capacity in which you can do Airbnb, and yeah, it's during South by Southwest and ACL. You can definitely sell. You can definitely rent your place out in most parts of Austin for more than the cost of the entire month or rent or whatever. Yeah. If you want to do that, it's not a lot more, and so like you have to think about it. So yeah, we will not be here in March, but we will be here in February, we will be here in April. And then we're here all the rest of the months, except in December, we'll probably go back over to Roblesko, which is where we get the pizzas. I did not know, apparently at the beginning of this year, they switched to 22-inch pizzas from 20-inch pizzas. And as it turns out, that is, what is that, 400, well, so it's like,
How many calories?
200 squared. So 22 squared minus 40 squared times pi, and times 20 squared
You
times
get a
pi.
pot.
It's an extra 20% surface area.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's, so I don't think we need 7 22-inch pizzas, even though 6 to 7 20-inch pizzas, depending on how big the night is here, the Go group has been about the right number. 5 to 6 has been, we will absolutely destroy 5 to 6, and that's why I always get 7. Turns out 7 22-inch pizzas is too much. I did not know that. The website still says 20-inch, and then I get over there and I saw the pizza done. I'm like, that looks bigger than the normal pizzas, and they're like, yeah, they're bigger now. I'm like, oh, okay. So yes, I will get less. And of course, as always, if you've got preferences on pizza styles, I try to get a mix of vegetarian-friendly options and carnivore-friendly options. I don't usually do gluten-free ones because it's all the same oven, and so if you're actually celiac, it's probably not going to be enough. But if there is interest, let me know. What else? We've talked in the past of doing another bug squash-a-thon. We've got a couple ideas for areas we could focus on with that, but I think I want to hear some pretty clear consensus that that's what we want to do for a particular month, and that's going to take a little bit more planning than just 1 month to get set up. Just it's not that hard, but we want to communicate to the group, what all you need to get ready, what all you need to have on your laptop or whatever, because it's the kind of thing that some prep work on the behalf of all the attendees is really what's needed to make something like that successful or not. So, presentation style is nice because everybody still gets something out of it, even though only 1 or 2 people have to put a lot of work into it. But in order to get a successful bug-a-thon, like, everybody has to do a little bit of work in order for that to work well. And so we can do it, but we got to get a certain level of critical mass before it makes sense to do that. So we've done them. Definitely, we had the one Kubernetes one that I mentioned at the beginning, where it was really easy to find bugs and fix them in Kubernetes back in 2018. Was that time frame?
So in the bug-a-thon, everybody brings a bug and there's...
No. It was in that particular case. Theoretically, you could go to one of these code bases that has a list of open bugs. Some of the bigger open source code bases have bugs that they think are probably going to be nuke friendly, and so that's a good place to start. You just put everybody down and say, hey, this is a repo that we think there's a bunch of bugs. Other things you could do, instead of just fixing bugs, you could just fix the documentation. One of the times when I think we actually did the bug-a-thon thing twice, and one of the times we worked on it that was pretty successful as well was testable examples. So if you're not familiar in Go, it's a topic we have discussed at one point in the meeting, but it's been a while. So you can actually, if you're looking through the official documentation or whatever, you'll see sometimes, in addition to just information about like, oh, here's the official documentation about how this function works and what we're expecting it to do and all of that kind of stuff. Sometimes you'll see some examples of like how you can use it. Well, so those examples are actually the separate mechanism that Go has, where it actually will include the code from the example file inside of the documentation. So if you're looking at GoDoc or something like that, the example file will be spit out. But it also will automatically test that whenever you're doing your Go tests to make sure that the example code still works. And so it's a really powerful combination for just a little bit of effort to go and make something that looks like a reasonable way someone might actually use this particular library or something like that. It's better to have very clearly made variable names, clearly made function names, whatever it is. You know, you're not trying to solve some really in-depth real-world problem. You're just trying to give an example, like a really simple example of how this thing might be used, or a particular pattern where the use of that function may give you unexpected behavior or something like that. So creating those examples are a really, really strong way of getting things in. Like if you create a bunch of examples in some like major Go library or whatever, your stuff is probably getting merged because they love having those examples. And the people who are like up to their eyeballs in writing the code are usually not the best ones for making those example files.
Speaking of open source PRs,
Yeah.
I've seen multiple instances lately of big open source maintainers complaining about AI generated PRs basically.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's been a big problem, like people just opening random shit into a
People?
open source.
What?
Yeah, people driving AIs basically.
Yeah.
Most notably, I saw you using Ghosty, so the guy behind Terraform, he was complaining about that a few days ago.
Yeah.
In the Ghosty repo. Yeah.
Well, and curl was having a pretty big problem with
Yeah,
that.
yeah, there was,
They were having a pretty big problem, and then somebody actually did like SAST and dynamic stuff and LLM stuff on top of it. It's like, well, this is actually good. Congratulations, you found a use for AI.
And after they said that, they got swarmed.
Also,
again,
it turned out
so
to be useful?
once.
Once.
Oh, okay.
Once.
Because part of that, they're complaining about how bad it was. Then they said, oh yeah, this one's actually good. Then they got like 100x of spam, and they said, never mind.
I still like Linus Torvalds' approach to that is like people were thinking because it's Linus, they were like, oh, we're gonna get a really hot take, you know, something that can be like plastered on the front page.
And his hot take is stop freaking talking about it. If it's good code, it's good code. If it's crap code, it's crap code. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter how you generate it.
That's basically what his take was. It was like, I don't care if you use
Oh, his
LLM.
anti-gravity thing, where he created something vibe coding?
No. So Linus Torvalds' overall view of,
Okay,
of
because
like
he
AI.
recently just like shared something where he committed something
Yes.
with anti-gravity or something with Google.
He's like,
agent thing.
this actually, because it was like random UI stuff or whatever, in
Yeah.
languages that he's not necessarily comfortable with, it's like, this was a better result than it, I
He endorsed
chose
it,
without
basically.
fuel.
Yeah. His
He also built Git, so you know.
his comment on that was basically he thinks of LLMs as being kind of like IDEs. He's not gonna go use VS Code. He's not gonna go use like IntelliJ. And he's like, I don't care if you used it to make your code. All I care about is the code that you created with it any good. He's like, if you think something like VS Code or IntelliJ or Eclipse or whatever, some like heavyweight IDE of some kind was helpful, then knock yourself out.
Yeah.
Like that's great. He's like, I wouldn't actually advise it to anybody working on the Linux kernel. He's like, but there's for some things that like clearly that's the way to go. Like if you're doing Java EE dev, like yeah, you're gonna get a lot of benefit from using some kind of IDE functionality, even if it's not a full-on GUI. Like if you use like one of these modified like plugins for Eclipse for Emacs or Vim or something like that. Like even if you're doing something like that, you can still be productive with Java in one of these, rather than just literally using a vanilla Vim or Emacs or something. But if you're doing the Linux kernel dev, well, probably there's none of the IDEs that are going to be useful at all for doing that. Like the things that you're doing on a day-to-day basis aren't the kinds of things those tools are made for.
Also, the horrific black magic of the macros in the kernel.
Yeah, that certainly is a contributing factor. It's going to completely destroy whatever the heck your IDE thought was being clever. It's going to fight against what the Linux kernel's header files think is clever, which is a different kind of clever, and they don't work very well together. Yeah, so when people are working on the Linux kernel or whatever, like making their own like homegrown macros and such is a pretty common thing for whatever section of the kernel you're working in.
Yeah.
And so that's not really something that's gonna map well onto like a high level existing IDE. They're like, if they're doing something that's easily automated like that, they're probably writing it all from scratch themselves. And otherwise they're writing like extensive debugging tools where you're jumping back and forth to the terminal all the time.
Or there's that Cosinel, Cautionel?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is like a scripting language for changing source code.
Mm-hmm.
It walks the syntax tree, and so you can say like, actually this is a pointer now always, and you just run it and it fixes all the places.
Oh, really?
That's existed for years, but it only works for the kernel.
Yeah, there are other equivalents in other languages.
Yeah. So there's
Refactor, basically.
but basically
Yeah,
his
yeah.
view was that LLMs are equivalent as far as he's concerned to an IDE, which is it may be useful for certain specific circumstances, but depending on what you're working on, it's going to get more in the way than be helpful. And so he's like, if it's useful for your pattern, like I don't care, but like I'm not going to recommend it to anybody. And also,
It feels though in the last couple of months, in my experience, that adoption has deeply increased.
Well, I mean, Opus 4.5 came out so that
Yeah, that was a big moment.
certain things went from like I'm beating my head against the wall to like, okay, it actually saved me time on this.
yeah.
And now you can submit the crap PR.
I would say that the amount of code that is being generated has increased dramatically, and the
How about
number.
useful code?
Yes, more due to the cube square law than anything else. So, with the cube of the number of lines of useful code, the number of with the cube of the number of LLM generated lines of code, by the same reason that a stop clock is right twice a day, like you're going to get at least a linear improvement in useful lines of code as well. So
One of the primary use cases I use LLM for is
Yes.
once upon a time, my development time almost is a 70-30, sometimes in 60-40 split on writing code versus writing tests. Now my split all go all the way up to 90-10 because I instruct LLM to write my test, telling them how I want to test, what I want to test. It usually comes out pretty well. One thing I found out the hard way is it tries so much to reach your goal to have your test pass. It works around your bug, unless you specifically instruct it not to do so.
Yeah.
Well, and there's also the argument that that's one of the ways that people are using it is to write their own code and have the test be generated. Another way is the other way around, is to write their own tests and have the LLM generate the code.
I never find test-driven development actually. I tried many times.
And it's
I
gonna
never
depend.
find it actually works.
I have seen a lot of people smack into it and not be successful. I've seen a lot of people who have been successful, and it seems to depend a lot on the programming language you're using to do it.
Sure.
Which
TDD?
Yeah, to do TDD. To actually get the full realized dream of TDD, it seems like it really depends a lot in how you're writing those tests and what language it is you're writing those tests in.
Yeah.
And like just the shape of the test that you're writing. But even so, like, yeah, I don't think I've ever seen the most productive developers doing TDD, but I have seen developers who were very productive if they were in the right language combination and everything. It has distinct advantages for being able to tell how much progress you've made. So if you're if you're using a language that works well with that, and you're in an industry that values a lot being able to see constant progress towards a particular goal, TDD is way better about that. than
Yeah, you
building
can start with a
tools.
bunch of red tests that are basically a mirror of your spec in English,
Yeah.
and then turn them green.
Yeah.
The catch with that, of course, is you need to actually have a good idea of the API that you want to build in dev, and I'm not a good enough dev to actually get it right the first time.
Well, again, and I think that has to do with a language that's really good for helping you with that. If you're using particular dialects of Java, seem to be pretty good about doing that. I have seen people use Go for TDD with a lot of success. But their tests are not, like, their tests are these table-driven tests all the way through integration tests. So they're doing table-driven integration tests. And so if you're writing huge piles of
What's
table-driven
table-driven?
integration tests. What?
What's table driven?
So table-driven tests. Oh, well, we are running out of time, so we have to get going. But that is a great topic for discussion at a future meeting. I would say, in large part, while versions of table-driven tests have existed previously, that is in the same way that Perl kind of kicked off the fascination with regular expressions, Go kicked off the fascination with table.
F tests are better.
Mention the.
All right, again, if you need parking passes, please come get them. We gotta get out of here in a couple minutes, so. If anybody wants pizza, take it with you. Like, if you, any pizza that's left is getting thrown away.
It's not that much.
Yes.
And then it's like, hey, let's go.
Okay, so you do the table driven test, and I'll do the better.
Do you want to think? Do you have an example somewhere online that you can point to for
Good to see you, man.
How are things?
Like, I am ready to go, I'm back.
Discovered today after doing a lot of math that it didn't cost the company several $1 million. So yeah.
Because in a lot of cases, like, hey,
So, yeah, that was
let's make sure that we
nice.
actually
Assuming those parking vouchers only work
so
here,
this, and that.
not
So it's
like a nearby
it's-
parking garage.
It winds up
that's
being a little bit verbose, because it's like four
I was running late and I
stuff,
missed the entrance.
but,
so I went next
it also makes a lot more obvious, where it's like, wait, I have, like, my test has
That which way
something
to
about
walk,
complexity, I need to iron that out.
Right, so where's the normal way that you write tests? Get it. Sorry, okay. Really quick.
Air garage is who
So this is the normal way that you do tests, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Imagine there was a slap.
Yes.
What can I find? Is that on like the, on the Meetup page?
Or does it insert it on?
No,
so,
yeah, it's the Go pretty fast. Yeah, an international.
International one?
Yeah, so,
And all your
inputs, all your
expectations. I eventually found a link sitting here just now. It was like invite.go.bridge.org.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And you loop over it and you say.
Yeah,
invite.slack.golangbridge.org. Okay, yeah.
In my opinion,
frequently the better way is this, which is, I don't know if this is a good name, F tests. You declare an anonymous function, which is the inside of that loop, right? And you do t.help, which means that when the test fails, the Go test program.
It took me like 5 minutes of Googling to figure out how to get there, but it worked.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, you found it still anonymous? Yeah.
And you end up with a bunch of lines where you're calling this F function, and this will do this. Yeah.
I drove my car to
It's negative. So this version.
This
Well,
was,
I
must
just
be the highest
like,
taker.
at the same
This
time,
one.
I live in, Waterloo, and I, went to one for like a conference.
And you go to that line,
And
you're
like,
like,
get back, and then
I don't know what this is.
Sorry.
Well, you have to do like
Eugene? Eugene, is this your backpack?
Yeah,
Okay.
which
Okay.
instance of
And
the
then you have to
table
scroll up
is-
into the
down.
top.
Yeah.
Those quite like,
Yeah, yeah.
So,
if you
Alright.
do the
I never drove
We
like
can head out to the hallway if you need to.
on my back and
Oh,
I think it's a much better.
That's great.
Structure.
We're not looking, it's kind of a weird background, but we're not looking just exclusively for that. I mean, we are also, but not yet.
Okay, well, have a good night.
Most recently, I was working at
Two-thirds of more.
security. This is almost there. I have a engine that operates no code to implement it.
Okay.
It's interesting.
Is somebody actually gonna take this?
Very cool stuff, by the way.
Yeah, really awesome. It was really, really cool. Yeah, we're gonna clear it out.
I was just telling you this.
Yeah, the question is, if I just walked off with it, would I be taking something away that's not?
I already got like one right there.
No, it's the one, that was where there's like 3 or 4 locations down there, but they're all secretly.
Okay.
So the one target is now is maybe it's the arm, but that's when you can do it, you just gotta.
Okay,
find a structure.
okay, if I get some spare time,
Yeah.
stuff like that, I might try to do some.
Thank you for your help.
Already wanted to
You're welcome.
share
I looked at
like
the
source library for that, I can't.
Oh, okay.
We
We
do,
do,
software
keep it for like, so
we
we
also
use
get
that.
that services.
Gotcha, gotcha.
We say that.
Nice, well, thanks for coming out as well, yeah?
Yeah, just
Okay,
we'll
yeah,
be-
we're getting free time.
we'll be happy to look at this. You find new people.
We'll see if we can kind of flush out and use the route.
Absolutely.
Work on styles better.
4 days
I
in
think
office.
I thought that was really good to get.
Remote.
For me.
Stop doing it to work, right?
Yeah.
Once it's all, get it all.
Yeah.
But it's flexible.
Would you be friends?
Nope.
We're buying,
Don't do like partner. It's like just north of area. Someday I will try. Like
West Central East. Anyone want to be here over at the last place?
What? One more slice of sausage.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but most people don't say.
I'll make the sacrifice.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Round rock, so I gotta figure out.
Oh, okay. Okay.
You need help with those boxes?
No, but we can get that. We can get out around 9.
Yeah. And I have I look at what he's cooking on. Because right now he's using the
I was gonna mention, you were saying I think companies were looking to hire.
Yes.
Our company's looking to hire Go engineers, DBA, stuff like that.
Nice, well, we'll definitely
So we
put
should
something
chat.
in the Slack.
Okay.
And then next month, if you wanna, announce it at the beginning or whatever.
Okay. Awesome. So it's okay if people post in Slack to that?
For where? Oh, absolutely. For, like, if you're hiring, yeah.
Is there a channel for it or just in general?
In the ATX one, just.
Oh, just ATX one, okay.
Yeah. It's one of those, there's definitely a fine line between.
I know, I don't wanna, like, don't want to speak to you
spamming
before
or
for-
recruiters or whatever.
Yeah, when recruiters show up and wanna hang out once, like, that's great, you just have to sit there and be quiet for now.
Yeah.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, like you know, by all means, tell everybody you're doing it and everything like that, but, I don't think we need to have like a long conversation about like what the perks and the pay range and stuff. It's like,
Don't sell your
if they
company.
wanna, yeah, if they wanna have a conversation, then have a conversation, but like, making sure that people are aware that it's there is absolutely something we want to happen.
Cool.
Awesome.
I don't know, okay. But at least for the next.
All right, we gotta get out of here.
Okay.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will not be.
I've been on the ATX meetup for a couple of years now, so, but I've been basically recently.
Oh, nice, yeah, yeah.
Like,
There you go, yeah.
Success.